A biker tried to run over a police K9. What the dog's owner did next had everyone cheering. The roar of motorcycle engines shattered the tranquil morning in Oakville. Officer Sarah Thompson gripped the steering wheel of her patrol car tightly as a pack of bikers raced by, openly flouting the speed limit. At her side, her loyal K9 partner Max let out a low growl, his keen senses attuned to the brewing trouble. Sarah's thoughts drifted to her late father, the revered police chief who had dedicated his life to serving and protecting this close-knit community. Though he was gone, his legacy lived on through Sarah's unwavering commitment to upholding the law and safeguarding the town's residents. As the bikers disappeared around a corner, Sarah steeled her resolve. The notorious gang, led by the ruthless Jake Mad Dog Mattson, had long terrorized Oakville, striking fear into the hearts of its citizens. It was high time someone stood up to their reign of intimidation. With a determined set to her jaw, Sarah guided the patrol car back onto the main road. She had sworn an oath to serve and protect, and no amount of threats or intimidation would deter her from fulfilling that sacred duty. Max's ears perked up, his piercing gaze fixed on the horizon. Sarah followed his line of sight, her heartbeat quickening as she spotted a familiar figure speeding down the road, his motorcycle weaving recklessly through traffic. Mad Dog Mattson, the notorious leader of the biker gang, seemed to relish in his blatant disregard for the law. His wild, untamed appearance, long, greasy hair whipping in the wind, heavily tattooed arms gripping the handlebars, only added to his aura of danger. Sarah flipped on the sirens and hit the accelerator, determined to put an end to Mad Dog's reckless behavior. Max let out an excited bark, eager to spring into action at his partner's command. As they closed in on the speeding biker, Sarah's mind raced with the countless stories she had heard about Mad Dog's cruelty and the gang's iron-fisted control over Oakville. Fear had silenced many, but Sarah refused to be cowed. She had a duty to protect and serve, and she would not back down. With skill and precision, Sarah maneuvered the patrol car behind Mad Dog, signaling for him to pull over. But instead of complying, Mad Dog glanced over his shoulder, a wicked grin splitting his weathered face. In a burst of speed, he gunned the engine, leaving Sarah and Max in a cloud of dust. The chase was on. Sarah's knuckles turned white as she gripped the steering wheel, her eyes narrowed in fierce determination. Mad Dog wove through the streets of Oakville, disregarding stop signs and traffic lights with reckless abandon. Beside her, Max's muscles tensed, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The loyal K9 had been a constant presence at Sarah's side ever since he had been donated to the department by a local family. Max had saved their child from a burning building, cementing his place as a beloved hero in the community. As they rounded a corner, Mad Dog suddenly swerved, his motorcycle careening dangerously close to the sidewalk. Pedestrians scattered, their screams of terror piercing the air. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat as she realized Mad Dog's true intention. With a sickening twist of his handlebars, Mad Dog aimed his motorcycle directly at Max. Time seemed to slow as Sarah watched in horror, her foot slamming on the brakes. Max, ever the trained professional, leaped to safety mere inches from the motorcycle's deadly path. Mad Dog's laughter echoed through the streets as he sped away, leaving chaos and fear in his wake. Sarah's blood boiled with righteous anger. This wasn't just a reckless biker flouting the law, this was a malicious attack on her partner, on the very symbol of hope and protection that Max represented to Oakville. Enough was enough. It was time to take a stand against the gang's tyranny. Sarah pulled into the police station parking lot, her mind reeling from the day's events. Max hopped out of the car, his tail wagging with the satisfaction of a job well done, oblivious to the narrowly averted tragedy. As Sarah made her way inside, her fellow officers greeted her with nods of respect and murmurs of concern. Word of Mad Dog's attempt on Max's life had spread like wildfire, igniting a shared sense of outrage and determination among the tight-knit group of law enforcement professionals. Deputy Chris Martinez, a young officer with a keen sense of justice, fell into step beside Sarah. "We can't let them get away with this," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The gang's been running roughshod over Oakville for far too long." Sarah nodded, her jaw set with resolve. It's time we take a stand, she agreed. But we have to do it the right way. We can't stoop to their level. As they entered the briefing room, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. She knew that taking on the gang would require more than just brute force. They needed the support of the community, the trust of the people they had sworn to protect. An idea began to take shape in Sarah's mind, a plan that would chip away at the gang's power while simultaneously building bridges with the residents of Oakville. It would take time, patience, and no small amount of courage, but Sarah knew in her heart that it was the only way forward. With a deep breath, she stepped to the front of the room, ready to share her vision with her fellow officers. Together, they would forge a new path for Oakville, one that would lead them out of the darkness and into a brighter, safer future. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Sarah and Max set out on their morning patrol. The streets of Oakville were still cloaked in the hush of dawn, the occasional chirping of birds the only sound breaking the stillness. As they cruised through the neighborhoods, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Mad Dog's brazen attack the day before had set the town on edge, and she knew that the gang would be looking for any opportunity to strike back. Suddenly, Max's ears perked up, and he let out a low growl. Sarah slowed the car to a crawl, her eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of trouble. There, in the shadows of a dilapidated building, she spotted a group of bikers huddled together, their motorcycles parked in a haphazard circle. Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the telltale insignia on their leather jackets, the snarling wolf that served as the gang's emblem. She knew she had to approach with caution, but she also couldn't ignore the potential threat they posed to the community. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped out of the car, Max at her side. The bikers looked up, their eyes narrowing as they recognized the uniform and the badge. One of them, a heavily tattooed man with a shaved head, stepped forward, his posture radiating menace. Well, if it isn't Oakville's finest, he sneered, his gaze flicking dismissively over Sarah and Max. Don't you have some parking tickets to write? Sarah stood her ground, her voice calm and even. I'm here to ensure the safety and well-being of this community, she said. And that includes making sure that everyone, regardless of their affiliations, follows the law. The biker let out a harsh laugh. The law? That's rich, coming from a badge. You think you can tell us what to do? Sarah met his gaze unflinchingly. I think we all have a responsibility to make Oakville a better place. And that starts with open communication and mutual respect. For a moment, the biker looked taken aback, as if he hadn't expected such a measured response. Then, with a grunt, he turned away, gesturing for his companions to mount their bikes. As the gang rode off, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. But she also knew that she had taken an important first step in bridging the divide between law enforcement and the community they served. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah climbed back into the car, Max at her side. Together, they set off to continue their patrol, ready to face whatever challenges the day might bring. News of Sarah's encounter with the bikers spread quickly through the tight-knit community of Oakville. Some praised her bravery, while others worried that she had only provoked the gang's ire. But Sarah remained undeterred. She knew that the only way to truly make a difference was to keep pushing forward, to keep finding ways to connect with the people she had sworn to protect. One such opportunity presented itself when Sarah received a call from the principal of Oakville Elementary School. A group of students had been caught vandalizing school property, and the principal was at a loss for how to handle the situation. Sarah arrived at the school to find a group of sullen-faced preteens, their eyes downcast as they awaited their punishment. But rather than lecture them or threaten them with legal consequences, Sarah knelt down to their level, her voice gentle and understanding. I know you probably think I'm here to yell at you or tell you how much trouble you're in, she said. But the truth is, I'm here because I care about you and I want to help you make better choices. The kids looked up at her, surprise and tentative hope mingling in their expressions. Sarah spent the next hour talking with them, listening to their stories and offering guidance and support. By the end of the conversation, the kids were smiling and laughing, their earlier misdeeds forgotten. Sarah knew that this was just one small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like a step in the right direction. As she left the school, Max trotting happily at her side, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. Change was possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. It just took patience, compassion, and a willingness to see the good in people, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. The days turned into weeks, and Sarah's efforts to build bridges with the community began to bear fruit. She organized neighborhood watch groups, hosted community forums, and even started a youth mentorship program at the local community center. Slowly but surely, the residents of Oakville started to come out of their shells, their fear and mistrust giving way to a tentative sense of hope and unity. Even some of the younger members of the biker gang began to take notice, their tough exteriors cracking ever so slightly in the face of Sarah's unwavering kindness and compassion. But not everyone was happy with the changes taking place in Oakville. Mad Dog Matson, the leader of the biker gang, saw Sarah's efforts as a direct threat to his power and influence. Late one night, as Sarah and Max patrolled the quiet streets, they received a chilling call over the radio. A biker had been spotted lurking outside Sarah's home, a menacing figure in the darkness. Sarah's heart raced as she sped towards her house, her mind filled with images of her elderly mother, alone and vulnerable. But when she arrived, she found the biker sprawled on the ground, groaning in pain. Standing over him, a frying pan clutched in her trembling hands, was Sarah's mother. "I heard a noise outside," she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and defiance. "I couldn't just sit there and do nothing." Sarah's heart swelled with pride and love for her brave, resilient mother. In that moment, she realized that the strength of Oakville didn't just lie with its law enforcement or its community leaders. It lived in the hearts of every single resident, young and old alike. As she helped her mother inside and called for backup to take the biker into custody, Sarah felt a renewed sense of determination. The gang's days of terrorizing Oakville were numbered, and she would stop at nothing to see that justice was served. The attempted attack on Sarah's mother sent shockwaves through Oakville, galvanizing the community in a way that Sarah had never seen before. Suddenly, people who had once been content to keep their heads down and mind their own business were stepping up, offering their support and their resources to help in the fight against the gang. One such ally was Jack Thompson, the owner of the local hardware store and a longtime friend of Sarah's late father. Jack had always been a pillar of the community, known for his generosity and his willingness to lend a helping hand to anyone in need. When he heard about the attack on Sarah's mother, Jack didn't hesitate to offer his assistance. He organized a town hall meeting, inviting everyone in Oakville to come together and discuss ways to take a stand against the gang's reign of terror. The turnout was overwhelming. The community center was packed to the rafters with concerned citizens, all eager to do their part to make Oakville a safer, more peaceful place to live. As Sarah stood at the front of the room, flanked by Max and her fellow officers, she felt a swell of emotion rising in her chest. For so long, she had felt like she was fighting this battle alone, but now, looking out at the sea of determined faces before her, she realized that she had never been alone at all. Together, they brainstormed ideas and strategies, from increased neighborhood patrols to community outreach programs aimed at steering at-risk youth away from the lure of the gang. And with each suggestion, each show of support, Sarah felt her resolve growing stronger. The road ahead would not be easy, but with the strength and unity of the community behind her, Sarah knew that anything was possible. Oakville would not be defined by fear and violence any longer. It would be a beacon of hope, a shining example of what could be accomplished when people came together in the name of justice and peace. As the weeks passed, Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to implement the strategies and ideas that had been born out of the town hall meeting. They increased patrols in high-crime areas, partnered with local businesses to create job training programs for at-risk youth, and even started a mentorship program that paired police officers with students from Oakville Elementary. But even as they made progress, the gang refused to go down without a fight. Mad Dog Matson, enraged by the community's defiance, unleashed a campaign of terror and intimidation, targeting anyone who dared to stand up against him. Late one night, as Sarah and Max patrolled the streets, they received a frantic call over the radio. The community center, the very heart of Oakville's resistance against the gang, was under attack. Sarah's heart pounded as she raced to the scene. Max's ears flattened against his head as he sensed the urgency in his partner's movements. When they arrived, they found the community center engulfed in flames, the acrid smell of smoke filling the air. Without hesitation, Sarah and Max sprang into action. As Max used his keen sense of smell to locate anyone who might be trapped inside, Sarah coordinated with the fire department and her fellow officers to evaluate the surrounding buildings and secure the area. It was a long, harrowing night, but in the end, everyone made it out safely. The community center was a total loss, but the spirit of Oakville remained unbroken. In the days that followed, the town came together once again to rebuild. Volunteers from all walks of life pitched in, donating their time, their resources, and their skills to help bring the community center back to life. As Sarah watched the rebuilding efforts unfold, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and inspiration. In the face of unspeakable adversity, the people of Oakville had shown a resilience and a unity that was truly remarkable. They had proven that they were stronger than any gang, stronger than any threat or intimidation. And with each passing day, Sarah grew more and more certain that, together, they would emerge from this crisis stronger, more united, and more determined than ever before. The attack on the community center marked a turning point in the battle against the biker gang. The people of Oakville, once cowed by fear and intimidation, now stood tall and proud, their resolve unshakable in the face of Mad Dog Matson's cruelty. But even as the town rallied around Sarah and her team, tensions continued to rise. The gang, sensing that their grip on power was slipping, grew more desperate and more violent with each passing day. It all came to a head on a sweltering summer afternoon as Sarah and Max patrolled the outskirts of town. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life with an urgent message. A group of bikers had been spotted heading towards the center of Oakville, armed to the teeth and hellbent on revenge. Sarah's heart raced as she gunned the engine, Max's hackles rising as he sensed the impending danger. They arrived on the scene to find a standoff in progress, the bikers facing off against a wall of determined citizens, their faces set with grim resolve. At the head of the gang, Mad Dog Matson sat astride his motorcycle, his eyes glinting with malice as he surveyed the crowd. "You think you can stop us?" he sneered, revving his engine threateningly. "We own this town, and we always will." But even as he spoke, Sarah could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the flicker of doubt that belied his bravado. The people of Oakville had shown that they were not afraid, that they would not be cowed by threats or intimidation. Slowly, deliberately, Sarah stepped forward, Max at her side. "This ends now, Mad Dog," she said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Oakville belongs to its people, not to you or your gang. It's time for you to leave and never come back." For a long, tense moment, the two sides stared each other down, the air crackling with barely suppressed tension. Then, with a snarl of rage, Mad Dog gunned his engine and charged forward, his fellow bikers following close behind. What happened next would go down in Oakville history as a defining moment of courage and unity. The citizens of the town, armed with nothing more than their conviction and their love for their community, stood their ground against the oncoming tide of violence. Some launched themselves at the bikers, knocking them from their motorcycles with sheer force of will. Others formed human chains, blocking the gang's path and giving Sarah and her fellow officers time to move in and make arrests. Through it all, Max was a blur of fur and fury, leaping from one biker to the next with lightning speed and pinpoint precision. His powerful jaws clamped down on arms and legs, sending weapons flying and gang members tumbling to the ground. In the end, it was over almost as quickly as it had begun. Mad Dog Matson lay pinned beneath Sarah's boot, his face a mask of rage and disbelief as he struggled to comprehend his defeat. Around them, the people of Oakville erupted into cheers of joy and relief, their faces shining with the knowledge that they had done something extraordinary. They had stood up to tyranny and won, not through violence or intimidation, but through the power of their own unbreakable spirit. As Sarah surveyed the scene, her heart swelled with pride and gratitude. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and setbacks still to come. But she also knew that Oakville would face those challenges as it always had, together, as one community, united by an unshakable bond of love and hope. In the days following the confrontation with the biker gang, Oakville underwent a transformation that was nothing short of remarkable. The once shuttered storefronts and deserted streets came alive with activity as residents emerged from their homes to celebrate their hard-won victory. Everywhere Sarah looked, she saw signs of renewal and rebirth. Volunteers came together to repaint the community center, turning the once charred ruins into a vibrant hub of activity and engagement. Local businesses, no longer living in fear of the gang's extortion, reopened their doors and began to thrive once more. But perhaps the most profound change of all was the one that took place within the hearts and minds of Oakville's residents. Where once there had been fear and mistrust, there was now a sense of unity and purpose that was truly inspiring to behold. People who had once kept to themselves now stopped to chat with their neighbors on the street, swapping stories and sharing in the joy of their shared triumph. Children played together in the park, their laughter ringing out like a symphony of hope and innocence. And at the center of it all was Sarah, the woman who had started it all. Everywhere she went, people stopped to thank her, to shake her hand or offer a word of encouragement. Some even brought gifts for Max, the loyal K9 who had fought so bravely at her side. But Sarah knew that the true heroes of Oakville were the people themselves. They had shown courage and a resilience that was truly awe-inspiring, and she felt humbled and honored to be a part of their community. As she walked the streets with Max at her side, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She thought of her father and the legacy of service and sacrifice that he had left behind. She thought of the challenges that still lay ahead and the work that would be required to keep Oakville safe and thriving. But most of all, she thought of the incredible power of the human spirit and the way that even the darkest of times could give way to a brighter, more hopeful future. And as she looked out over the town that she loved so dearly, Sarah knew that, no matter what the future might bring, Oakville would always stand strong, united by the unbreakable bonds of community and hope. As the weeks turned into months, Oakville continued to flourish under the watchful eye of Sarah and her team. The police department, once understaffed and overworked, now boasted a full complement of officers, each one dedicated to serving and protecting the community they loved. But even as the town prospered, Sarah knew that the work of building a better future was far from over. There were still challenges to be faced, still wounds to be healed, and bridges to be built. One such challenge came in the form of the town's youth, many of whom had grown up in the shadow of the gang's influence. Some had even been recruited into the gang's ranks, lured by the promise of easy money and a sense of belonging. Sarah knew that reaching these young people would be crucial to ensuring Oakville's long-term success. And so, with the help of her fellow officers and community leaders, she launched a new initiative aimed at providing at-risk youth with the support and resources they needed to thrive. They organized after-school programs and job training workshops, partnered with local businesses to provide internships and apprenticeships, and even started a mentorship program that paired police officers with young people in need of guidance and support. At first, progress was slow. Many of the youth were wary of the police, their trust eroded by years of negative experiences and broken promises. But gradually, through patience and persistence, Sarah and her team began to make inroads. They listened to the young people's stories, validated their experiences and concerns, and worked tirelessly to build relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. And slowly but surely, the walls of mistrust began to crumble, giving way to a new sense of connection and shared purpose. As Sarah watched these young people begin to blossom and grow, she felt a sense of hope and optimism that was truly intoxicating. She saw in them the future of Oakville, a generation of leaders and changemakers who would carry on the work that she and her colleagues had begun. And as she looked out over the town that she loved so dearly, Sarah knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, Oakville would always have the strength and the resilience to overcome them. For in the end, it was the people of this community, their courage, their compassion, and their unbreakable spirit, that would always be its greatest asset and its most enduring legacy. As the first anniversary of the confrontation with the biker gang approached, Sarah knew that it was time for Oakville to come together once again, not in fear or anger, but in celebration of all that they had accomplished. And so, with the help of Jack Thompson and other community leaders, she began to plan a grand festival that would showcase the best of Oakville's spirit and resilience. There would be music and dancing, food and games, and a chance for residents of all ages and backgrounds to come together in a spirit of unity and joy. As the day of the festival drew near, Sarah could feel the excitement building in the air. Everywhere she went, people were talking about the event, making plans and swapping stories about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. On the morning of the festival, Sarah woke up early, her heart racing with anticipation. She donned her uniform, gave Max a quick scratch behind the ears, and set out to join the rest of the community in the town square. When she arrived, she was greeted by a sea of smiling faces, a tapestry of colors and cultures that was truly breathtaking to behold. There were families with young children, elderly couples arm in arm, and groups of teenagers laughing and joking together. As the day went on, the festival only grew in size and energy. There were live performances by local musicians, games and contests for all ages, and food trucks serving up delicious treats from all corners of the world. But perhaps the most moving moment of all came when Sarah took the stage to address the crowd. As she looked out over the sea of faces, she felt a lump form in her throat, a well of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. 1 year ago, she began, her voice trembling with emotion, we stood together in the face of unimaginable darkness. We faced down fear and violence, and we emerged stronger, more united, and more determined than ever before. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising up in a crescendo of joy and triumph. And as Sarah looked out over the sea of faces, she knew that this was what Oakville was all about, not just a place, but a community, a family bound together by love, hope, and an unshakable commitment to one another. Today, she continued, we celebrate all that we have accomplished, and all that we will continue to achieve together. For in the end, it is not the challenges we face that define us, but the way we rise to meet them, with courage, with compassion, and with an unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. As the crowd erupted into applause once more, Sarah felt a sense of peace and purpose wash over her. She knew that there would be challenges still to come, that the work of building a better world was never truly done. But she also knew that, no matter what the future might bring, Oakville would always stand strong, united by the unbreakable bonds of community and hope. As the festival drew to a close and the sun began to set over Oakville, Sarah found herself walking through the streets of the town, Max trotting happily at her side. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of the incredible transformation that had taken place over the past year, the bustling storefronts, the laughter of children playing in the park, the sense of pride and purpose that seemed to radiate from every corner of the community. As she walked, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. She thought of the dark days when the biker gang had held the town in a grip of fear, and of the incredible courage and resilience that the people of Oakville had shown in rising up to take back their community. She thought of the challenges that still lay ahead, the work of healing old wounds, of building bridges across divides, of ensuring that every member of the community had the opportunity to thrive and succeed. But she also knew that, with the strength and unity of Oakville behind her, there was nothing that they could not achieve. As she rounded a corner, Sarah came upon a small garden, tucked away in a quiet corner of the town. It was a beautiful spot, filled with flowers of every color and a sense of peace and tranquility that seemed to wash over her like a balm. And there, in the center of the garden, she saw a small plaque, its words etched in gold against the polished stone. In memory of Chief Michael Thompson, it read, who taught us that true strength lies not in force, but in the courage to stand up for what is right. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat as she read the words, a sense of pride and gratitude welling up inside her. She knew that her father would have been proud of all that she and the people of Oakville had accomplished, of the incredible legacy of service and sacrifice that they had carried on in his name. And as she stood there, surrounded by the beauty and the peace of the garden, Sarah knew that this was what it was all about, not just the victories and the triumphs, but the quiet moments of reflection and renewal, the chance to pause and remember what truly mattered in life. With a soft smile, Sarah reached down and patted Max on the head, feeling the warmth and the strength of his presence beside her. Together, they turned and made their way back out into the streets of Oakville, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring, secure in the knowledge that they would never have to face them alone. For in the end, it was the spirit of this community, the love, the hope, and the unbreakable bonds of family and friendship that would always be their greatest strength and their most enduring legacy. And as long as that spirit remained, Sarah knew that Oakville would always be a place of light and hope, a beacon of possibility in a world that so often seemed filled with darkness and despair.